It was a warm summer evening when I decided to explore the old, abandoned asylum on the outskirts of our town. Stories and rumors about this place had been circulating for years. Some said it was haunted, others claimed it was the site of horrific experiments. But I wanted to see for myself, to find out the truth behind these tales. The asylum was a massive, decrepit building, overgrown with ivy and surrounded by dense forest. As I approached, the atmosphere grew heavier, and a sense of unease settled in my stomach. The gate was rusted and half open, inviting yet ominous. I took a deep breath and stepped inside. The courtyard was overgrown with weeds, and the once beautiful garden was now a tangled mess of thorny bushes and broken statues. As I walked further, I could hear the faint echo of my footsteps against the cracked pavement. The silence was unsettling, broken only by the occasional rustling of leaves in the wind. I reached the main entrance of the building. The door, barely ajar, looked as if someone had just entered. I cautiously pushed it open, and it creaked loudly. Inside, the dim light from the setting sun barely illuminated the interior through the dirty windows. Old photographs of patients hung on the walls, their faces gaunt and full of pain. Suddenly, I heard a faint whisper from deep within the corridor. I froze, listening, but the sound disappeared. Perhaps it was just the wind seeping through the cracks in the walls. I continued down the corridor, careful not to step on the debris and litter that covered the floor. At the end of the hall was a door leading to one of the rooms. I cautiously opened it and peered inside. The room was empty, save for an old bed and a dusty table. But something caught my eye. On the wall was a message written in blood: "They are coming for us." Chills ran down my spine, but I pressed on. I found an old office, which seemed to have once held patient records. The shelves were filled with folders and journals, many of them decayed with time. I began to sift through the papers and soon uncovered journals detailing the horrors that took place here. Experiments on the mind and body, inhumane tortures, and disappearances. Suddenly the light faded, plunging me into complete darkness. My heart raced. I took out my flashlight and illuminated the room. In the corner I saw a figure standing still. It was a person, or what was left of one. Their face was twisted in a silent scream, and their eyes, empty and lifeless, seemed to stare right at me. I tried to keep my panic in check and stepped back, but the figure vanished as if it had never been there, like a ghost of the past, a shadow of someone who once suffered here. Deciding to leave the building and continue my exploration outside, I hoped to find other evidence confirming the ghost stories. I exited to the backyard and discovered an old cemetery. The tombstones were covered in moss, many of them so old that the inscriptions had worn away. But one grave caught my attention. It was new, with a date of death that matched today's date. My blood ran cold. I looked around and, for a moment, thought I saw shadows moving among the trees. I felt something touch my shoulder, but when I turned, there was no one there. I realized I needed to leave immediately. Running back to the main building, I found that the door I had entered through was now locked. I tried to open it, but it wouldn't budge. Footsteps echoed inside the building, approaching me. I began to search for another exit, but the hallways seemed endless, as if the walls themselves were trying to trap me. I found a window and broke it, jumping outside. The cuts on my arms and legs from the broken glass were nothing compared to the terror I had experienced. I ran without looking back until I reached my car parked at the gate. Starting the engine, I drove away, trying to leave this place as quickly as possible. Only when I was far from the asylum did I allow myself to stop and catch my breath. I knew I had to write about this, but how could I describe what I had seen and felt? Returning home, I sat at my computer and began to write the article. With each word, I recalled the horrors and fear gripped me again. I knew I had to tell this story to warn others. That night, I slept restlessly. I dreamed of the asylum, of ghosts chasing me. When I woke up, I found fresh chain marks on my arm. It couldn't have been real, but it was too real to be just a dream. Days passed, and I published my article. The reaction was overwhelming. People shared their stories about the asylum, confirming my words. But the scariest thing happened a week after publication. I received a letter with no return address. Inside was a photograph. I was standing at the gate of the asylum, and behind me was a figure in the shadows. I knew this was the end. The asylum doesn't let go of its victims, and now it has found a new one.